Alright guys, what's up? This is Michael. Been bragging a little bit about how much fun I have doing a phase 3 run with the resistance. I think my favorite part is you really don't have to be super geared to do well. You can see I don't have Poe fast enough to beat out anybody, but he's tanky enough that he'll just survive hits and Finn will get him healed up afterwards. So real quick, just want to show you, the tunes that I'm using to run this. You can see I don't have these guys all to gear 10. Like I mentioned, I think my favorite thing about this is that you don't need to super gear them. They do well enough as it is, so I'm putting more focus on arena and other parts of the game. With a nice mix of 9 through 10, these guys are doing just fine. Poe, I think, is really the only one you need to get geared all the way up to 11, just to make sure they can survive all those tank shots. So real quick, the skills you need to pay attention to on R2 smokescreen is going to be the big one. Just the ability to put force out on one person, which isn't such as important thing, but give everybody else stealth. Because keep in mind the way the stealth mechanic works, you can't counterattack someone when they're in stealth. And since the B2 gains turn meter on counterattack, the last thing you want to do is give them a chance to do that. If you're interested, I don't have them modded to go super very fast. I'm not really too worried about speed on my mods on these guys because they get almost all of their turn meter off of Finn's Zeta. So Poe over here, I'm looking at speed and potency on his mod set. His most important ability here is going to be his special ability. So, taunts for 2 turns, that's nice. Removes 25% turn meter, that's useful, as the B2 is getting closer and closer to full turn meter, or if everybody hits 100% turn meter at the same time, even if Poe wasn't full turn meter when the B2 got full turn meter, if you're able to bring his turn meter up to 100% off of a game mechanic, such as popping an exposed bubble, it's still RNG as to which character who is at 100% gets to go next. So I've had a couple of times where the B2, just from his natural turn meter gain on hit, fills him all the way up. Then Poe, after the fact, gets filled up and uses his 25% reduction to get B2 back out of the danger zone there. But yeah, so the big thing you're looking at is that 65% chance to expose the targets for 2 turns, and then buff immunity on the main target for 2 turns. Is I like to keep that up on the main rocket trooper because he gets offense up on his basics. I just like to prevent that. Resistance trooper, he's got a couple of weird mechanics, so just pay attention to the way he works. I have this guy modded with as much potency as I can stack onto him. So he's got an extra 40% off of mods, brings him up to over 50%. He's my most potent character because he goes a lot. He takes a lot of turns. And the reason he takes all these turns is from his unique. So if you look at his unique here, it says he gains a little bit of potency, whoop-de-doo, but mainly he gains 55% turn meter whenever an enemy becomes exposed. So you'll see a couple of times during the match here, I'm going to hit the taunt off of Poe, and only 2 guys, expose only sticks on 2 guys, but that's enough. Even if the resistance trooper just went, that's enough for him to go all the way up to full turn meter. So you're going to see the resistance trooper popping in and out of stealth because he just goes all the damn time. Like, he's super speedy, and his basic allows him to land a turn or a expose. So if he shoots, he lands an expose, that gives him turn meter. If there was already expose on there, he pops that one too. He's almost back to full turn meter again. This guy he's rapid fire fast. You look at his main special here, his basic attack. Deal damage with a 65% chance to expose for 3 turns. So it's not a guarantee. I have as much exposed or as much potency on him as possible to make sure, it's as close to 65% chance actually happens. But you can't rely on flush out to actually work every time. Opportunistic Strike has the chance to dispel buffs, not super useful here, and a 50% chance to inflict speed down. I've tried testing around using speed down on the B2, and realistically, I'm not seeing a bunch of a difference. Most of the turn meter that happens in this whole third phase is gonna be from effects. So either the B2 getting turn meter on hit or counter, or resistance characters getting turn meter from exposed mechanics. So the speed down really doesn't affect a whole bunch. I recommend against using it. Ray, I've decided, isn't as useful on a phase 3 run. I think Pilot, because Pilot has exposes, is just more useful. I'm going to save talking about Finn for last. Pilot, obviously, hip fire, deal damage. You might get a little bit more turn meter back. This is, only ever bother using this if the other one's still on cooldown, and if possible, I'll just shoot one of the side droids with this. Hope she gets turn meter back, but her outmaneuver, deal physical damage, and again, only 65% chance to expose and potentially gain foresight. Foresight's not as important as, obviously that exposed chance. So again, just like Trooper, Pilot only has a decent chance to apply that expose. I have Pilot modded to do most of the damage, because crit damage mods were all I really had left after dumping my good potency mods on the other characters. Still have potency up about 50% to make sure the exposes stick when the 65% chance happens. So Finn, the monster that makes it all happen. First, I'm gonna talk about his exposed mechanic, and then I'll talk about his leader ability. So takedown says deal damage and expose. Doesn't say this and that percent to expose. It's and expose them for 2 turns and a chance to stun. Obviously, you can't stun the B2 Super Trooper, but because he's got a 100% chance when he hits, you can rely on that a lot more, especially when you get him modded with some potency on there. So I have his potency. He starts off with next to nothing. I had to dump a lot onto him to get him up there with everybody else. So he's looking at 50% potency. But whenever you use his takedown ability, you can almost guarantee that expose is going to land. And, if his lands, then Resistance Trooper gets that 55% turn meter, so you can almost rely on Finn to help you out in a tough spot. When Poe gets hit, this hold the line ability does 2 things. Dispels all debuffs is going to be super useful. If R2 gets ability blocked, you're going to want to get that off of him and Poe as soon as possible. You'll also see that Finn and Poe get a heal over time, 20% heal over time for 2 turns. So just 2 of these is going to get Poe from almost dead for those 2 turns there. That's going to, if you just hold the line twice, that's going to get Poe up from next to nothing to full health in just 2 turns. So very, very useful. This leader ability, if you're not familiar with what happens after you Zeta it, I'm going to this real quick. So, resistance allies gain offense, yay. Gain defense, yay. Whenever resistant ally loses foresight, they gain advantage. Okay, that's cool. But whenever an enemy takes damage from expose, reduce the cooldown of all resistance allies by 1 and grant 35% turn meter. So the takes damage from expose is important to take note of. If you got someone with 100 exposes on them and a sliver of health, and you just kill them outright with a big crit, the exposes never do any damage, and you don't get any effects from those exposes. So you'll see I'll try real hard to pop exposes while there's still enough health left that they actually do something. That 35% turn meter's pretty freaking ridiculous. All you need is 3 exposes on a target. That basically fills up from 0 to 100. So 3 bubbles is kind of the max. So yeah, in a nutshell, obviously I could do better if I took the time and the effort to gear up Finn and Pilot, but I really don't bother. So getting started is pretty straightforward. Have him throw up enough buffs to get the exposes rolling, and then just pretty much cycle around until R2 is able to get the stealth up. And whenever it's off cooldown, you're going to throw your stealth on everybody. And then the goal really is just to keep the exposures rolling on the main B2 rocket trooper right there in the center. And if you don't have a good shot at him, or you're not going to apply an expose, keep in mind that every time you hit him, he gets a 5% turn meter. So really only hit him if you have to. So using resistance trooper, always uses basic. I don't bother slowing him down because obviously his slow doesn't apply expose. Using the pilot, always use the special. Using Finn, always use his special. Like I said, R2 stealth on cooldown is pretty much the RNG of this. Obviously, other than the explosive stick, and the RNG has to come down to when everybody's turn meters fill up, having him get the stealth out before everybody else comes out of stealth. So you got to keep in mind the way the game works with the RNG, with turn meter. When more than one person hit 100% turn meter at the same time because of a game mechanic, and that mechanic could be the resistance off of Finn's Zeta for the exposes, or it could be the rocket trooper's 5% from hit. It's completely random who actually gets to go. So if you hit someone with those 3 exposes there, everybody gets turn meter. 3 bubbles, everybody gets to go. And it's just down to RNG who goes next. And you can see I didn't shoot the rocket trooper with Poe, because if I did, you got that strong chance for counterattack. And if the rocket trooper counterattacks, he gains a bunch of turn meter. So the goal is to kind of try and prevent as many attacks as you can, try and keep his turn meter low. You see I couldn't apply an expose, so I'm going to just go over there and hit one of those little turn meter batteries. Boom. Got that on cooldown. So when I'm doing this, it doesn't take a whole heck of a lot of attention, but there's a couple of things you need to be paying attention to. Obviously, whether or not you're stealthed, you really need to pay attention to your own turn meters, almost more than you need to pay attention to the enemy turn meters. You need to, every time you're wondering like which shot should I use, who should I attack, you're looking to see if you land your attack, will it get another resistance character to full turn meter. The goal is to always have somebody right there about to get turn meter and not have to rely on the resistance trooper to be able to pick up. So you can see that last ability there all the way up in the top right is the directing fire. When that one comes off cooldown, that's the one that allows him to summon up all of his extra buddies. So you'll see a couple times throughout this run, I'll be starting to run out of those little turn meter batteries on the side, and I'll take a peek over there and see how many turns before he comes up. And if he's had a couple of turns, there's still a bunch of exposed droids on the sides, I'll be a bit more aggressive about popping them and making sure that I'm constantly coming at a turn meter. A couple of things to watch out for when you're doing this is when you've cleared all the side droids and you only have the rocket trooper as a main target. It's really, really easy to mess up coming out, and if he summons up a whole bunch of people and Poe's taunt is on cooldown, it's really, really hard to regain control of the match. And the other thing you need to watch out for is that top turret. The way I look at it is every time you mess up and you let your turn meters fill up because of your character's speed rather than from the Zeta ability, the turret, along with obviously everything else, is going to gain turn meter. So you'll notice up until this point, I've been going for little over 5 minutes so far, and the turret's at about 4/5 turn meter. And that means that um, I've only allowed my own characters to gain turn meter only a very, very little bit. The majority of their turn meter is coming from that zFinn ability off the expose. So you'll notice there, taking a couple of risky moves, shooting the rocket trooper when I'm out of stealth because I'm trying real, real hard to let R2 get that turn meter. It can be real frustrating sometimes when everybody hits turn meter at the same time, getting R2 to go next, keeping in mind that if R2 is the only one left with turn meter and he goes and puts everybody in stealth, well, that means that everybody else gets to have turn too. So you try and pay attention to, when you see me pause a little bit, when I'll be looking at my turn meters and everything, trying to figure out what's the best shot without letting natural turn meter regen happen, because that's the last thing you want. Here in a couple of turns, you're definitely going to see a turret's going to take a shot. He's going to hit Poe pretty hard. I have Poe geared and modded enough that he can eat a turret shot, and then you got to get enough exposes ahead that you can waste Finn rather than him shooting his expose. You'll use that second ability that puts up a heal. So it's getting pretty close here. You can also see I'm running out of those side droids, and there's still one more turn left on the ability. Now it's all the way up. So you'll see I'm going to try real hard to hit the side droids. I just kind of wasted a turn there, trying to make sure I'm not wasting, trying to get that stealth up. So, yep, turn, hit one of the side ones. A couple of people have been asking questions about the way expose works. So watch this. You'll see, if you got this droid here on the side, he's got 6, 7 exposes stacked up on him. If and when I do decide to hit him, what's going to happen is you're going to deal a little bit of damage to him from your basic attack, and that little bit of damage is going to trigger the exposes. And if you hit him with a hard enough attack that he just goes down without the damage from the exposes doing anything, well, then you're not going to gain any turn meter or cooldown reductions. You're not going to see the white text numbers pop up letting you know the expose did something. But even if the target dies from the initial hit, like watch that, you see everybody just got full turn meter because the R2's flame attack doesn't do a whole heck of a lot of damage. So keeping everybody on stealth. Now you watch as I'm waiting for Poe's turn to come up. I'm going to try real hard not to use his taunt when the rocket trooper's turn meter is getting pretty full. So I'll use it now. It's safe. There's plenty enough time to control the match. All I got to do is hit 2 exposes, and it's going to have his taunt reset by the time it comes back to his turn. Get that stealth up so he can't counter. So I'm thinking about it. Yeah, probably good. I got lucky, got 2 exposes, and boom, just like that, Poe's already got his cooldowns reset. Yeah, I'm going to keep that stealth going. See? Everybody comes out. So if I had have used the stealth, or I had used Poe's taunt, could have been a real tricky spot coming out of this with all these rocket troopers. But now since this taunt is up, boom, boom, that gives resistance trooper automatic full turn meter. Now I'm starting to think about being ready for Poe to eat the turret shot. Gotta make sure I have foresight up on him. Boom, took a hit. Not too worried about immediately getting the heal over time back on him. I want to make sure I'm controlling the match. I'm a little bit worried about those side droids having a bit of turn meter, but now that I got my turn meter filled up, I'm good to go ahead and use my heal. Because I also have Poe's got full turn meter, and Rebel pilot, Resistance pilot rather, has full turn meter. You just see, I just keep the ball rolling. So I mean, in a nutshell, that's basically what you're doing. Just kind of lather, rinse, repeat. So as you're watching me do this, I'll only let the rocket trooper go about 7 times so far, 10 minutes into my run. This isn't something that I need to like back out and try over and over and over and over again to get good RNG. Once you get rolling, it's pretty straightforward. Uh, Rules are really just keep stealth up, taunt whenever you need to. Only ever use the basic off a trooper and then the specials off of Finn and pilot. If you're not going to apply an expose with R2, and you never will, if you're not going to apply an expose, try hitting a side one. If your guy isn't in stealth, it's definitely a risk to attack the rocket trooper, because if he does counter, he gets a lot of turn meter, and you'll find yourself wasting your turns. The overall damage potential of this, obviously, better gear, I'll probably bump up some higher scores, but really, you can just keep doing this forever. You can see I've already got Poe fully healed up, and he's still got an extra tick of that heal on him. He'll eat another shot, he'll get healed up, he's fine. Towards the end of this match, he'll finally go down with 2 turns left on the enrage timer. I'll go ahead and just let it go, and you'll see a pretty decent run. So yeah, anyways, in a nutshell, that's how I do it. Any questions, let me know. I'll kind of point things out. Otherwise, I'm just going to let the video run out. Thanks for listening. So as you can see, Poe took a shot and it finished him off. I'm not too worried. Super Rocket Trooper is only 1 turn away from in rage, so just kind of finishing out. All in all, pretty decent run. Came out to about 18%, so I did the math real quick before allowing it to go all the way to completion. Pull up the defeat screen and take a look at it. It's not a personal best, but it was a pretty decent shot, so I like this one.